The UT-60D U-Wing Starfighter by Incom is a fine representation of the adaptability and ingenuity of the Rebel Alliance. It was developed to combine the purpose of a traditional starfighter and functional support craft. The ship wasn't as plentiful as the more iconic X and Y-Wing fighters, but the U-Wing has participated in a number of galaxy-shaping events where its unique capabilities made a lot of difference in the war against the Empire. The most obvious feature of the ship is the variable wing design. The wings could be directed forward or backward to suit the needs of the specific mission. Each configuration was used to make the ship perform better in or out of a planet's atmosphere. Atmospheric flight and flight in zero gravity were very different skill sets. A ship designed for one wasn't necessarily great at the other. The iconic N-1 Starfighter from Naboo is a prime example. Its capabilities in atmosphere are nothing compared to what it could do in open space. Changing the wing configuration could be done mid-flight, making going from one circumstance to the other virtually seamless. Having wing configurations is a speciality of the Incom Corporation. The U-Wing's wings use a very similar technology that the X-Wing does to open their S-foils for combat. Most starfighters are designed for one or two occupants. A pilot alone or accompanied by a gunner or bomber would be the obvious use cases. The U-Wing was unique in that it had an impressive amount of storage. This space was commonly used for troop transport, but could also have the starfighter work as a supply ship. The cargo bay had seats and harnesses for troops, as well as a separated storage for the gear they would need on the ground. The size of the ship puts some limits on the amount of troops or supplies, but it does allow for things to be delivered in areas where larger transports simply can't fit. Its speed also helps these needed assets be delivered in the heat of battle. The U-Wing's cargo bay has large sliding doors on opposite sides. This allows for quick loading and unloading, but also allows troops to make use of the fighter as a gunship. The U-Wing's repulsor configuration would allow it to hover and help the gunners. The U-Wing has dual laser cannons mounted on its wings. It's not as effective against enemy fighters as the X-Wing or A-Wing, but it can hold its own in a fight. The U-Wing was never intended solely for dogfighting. It was designed as a support craft and excelled in this purpose. Many covert operations were carried out with the sleek U-Wing. It could slip into enemy territory, drop off elite troops, and meet them when their mission was complete, even in the most difficult terrain. In either configuration, the U-Wing was approximately 25 meters in length. This was a good balance in cargo size and maneuverability. It required only a single pilot to fly it. When possible, a co-pilot could make things much easier, but sometimes that seat was taken up by a specialist needed for whatever mission the U-Wing may be needed on. The wing-mounted cannons were Tame and Back KX-7 lasers. The ship did have places for additional armaments to be installed if the mission called for it. Being larger than most starfighters, the U-Wing wasn't the most agile in the fleet, but it could keep up despite its bulk. It really excelled in atmosphere. With its wings configured in the correct position and its ability to hover, it stood out amongst the other starfighters the Alliance utilized. The cockpit was packed full of state-of-the-art sensors and advanced targeting systems. One statistic on the starfighter I found confusing was the Class 2 hyperdrive. The X-Wings were given the better Class 1. With more room and arguably a stronger need to be able to travel long ranges quickly, the U-Wing could have benefited from the upgraded hyperdrive, as they were often sent without carrier ships to deliver supplies and troops. The most famous use of the U-Wing Starfighter was, of course, the Battle of Scarif. This battle saw a desperate band of rebels infiltrate a secret Imperial intelligence center. They did this mission without permission from their commanding officers. The powers that be came to their senses and would eventually send in the rebel fleet as backup. An intense space battle broke out as an equally intense battle on the planet's surface was underway. The U-Wing slipped past Imperial defenses and dropped troops off on the ground to assist in the assault. The U-Wing was created for 2016's Rogue One, a Star Wars story. This standalone Star Wars movie was praised for its gritty realism in the fantasy universe. The design team, led by director Gareth Edwards, teamed up with Lucasfilm visual artists to create a new ship. It had to be unique and cool while not standing too far apart from the other starfighters it was teamed up with. It needed to feel like something that could have shown up in the original trilogy, even if this was made almost 40 years later. This delicate design task was given to Doug Chiang, a talented concept artist. He and his team worked on many iterations of the U-Wing, trying to balance its cool profile with having to fit into a war movie and franchise that has existed since the late 1970s. Even in a fantasy series, the talented designers had to take some real science into account. How could the wings move? How would this affect the aerodynamics? How would the ship perform in combat? The designers settled on the design we see on screen for the functionality and uniqueness. With the design settled, the practical effects and digital artists at ILM got together to figure out how to best film each scene featuring the ship. Full-scale parts of the ship were needed for actors to interact with. A physical cockpit was created with all the greeblies, switches, levers, and blinking lights we love seeing in a Star Wars property. The view from the outside, where the ship is in flight, was done digitally. ILM, always on the cutting edge of movie-making magic, rendered the ship so realistically that the digital and practical effects were virtually seamless. Having the two forms be indistinct from each other went a long way in the U-Wing working for audiences on screen. For the dogfighting sequences in the movie, ILM used modern technology, of course, but also went old school Lucasfilm and made models that were used practically. Rogue One was a major success for the franchise. The U-Wing was widely accepted by the fan base. Why the U-Wing worked was because it was made to integrate with George Lucas's original vision, not be a shiny new thing that was better than everything that came before it. It wasn't overused and fit into the time period. The movie butts right up against A New Hope, which has no U-Wings in it. Given what went down on Scarif, this isn't a continuity-breaking concept. It's not Star Wars if we don't talk toys and collectibles. The U-Wing Starfighter was made into model kits, action figures, Lego sets, and featured in Battlefront 2. It was my favorite ship to play in the underrated Star Wars Squadrons game. Not only is the U-Wing itself pretty cool, I think the way it was introduced and integrated, working with the existing content instead of trying to replace it, is a lesson for any Star Wars creator to hold going forward. Check out this transmission next for more on Star Wars Starfighters.